Hey lads, Shoes here, This Irish Life, back with another episode of the Buried Ireland series. We are on episode 10, part 8. It's the episode that just keeps on giving. It's the one that keeps on giving. And we have extended our story of Ireland into some of the more traditional mythologies of the world just to draw another couple of dots into it. We've moved away from the maps. We pop in and out here and there. But now for this episode, we're going to look at some mythology. We're going to look at some deep world mythology, and we're going to remember our battles between the two sides of the Roses, the War of the Roses, the Battle of Ross, the people of Rus, the Moors, and we linked in recently Hagar and Abraham. And this goes back, I'll tell you why I'm linking this in, is because the story of the slave or the servant that takes over the kingdom is the common story that we keep being told over and over again. It's like Joseph is a slave in Egypt with his brothers who put him there were Jacob and Esau. Jacob is the same as James or Charles. So we put all those connections together, but we also connected it with Hagar and Abraham. And Abraham, I think, is actually Ham, son of Noah. So I think Abraham is the son of Noah because it says that Jacob is the grandson of Abraham. So that kind of parallels in with is it Jacob was the grandson of Abraham? They do say that, don't they? Or no, they say Isaac. No, Isaac is the son of Abraham, and Jacob is the grandson of Abraham. So, yes, that's right. So, the grandson of Abraham, who could be Ham, son of Noah. We got some pictures here. So, look, Hagar was a slave to Sarah, Abraham's wife. So, Hagar was Abraham's wife's slave. And Sarah was barren for a long time. She couldn't have kids. And God had promised Abraham a child and that he would be the father of many nations, especially since they were getting older. She offered Hagar to Abraham as a second wife. Hagar became pregnant, and tension rose between the two women. Sarah complained to Abraham and treated Hagar harshly, and Hagar ran away. Hagar fled to the desert on her way to Shur. At a spring en route, an angel appeared to Hagar, who instructed her to return to Sarah so that she may bear a child who shall be a wild ass of a man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the face of all his brethren. Then she was told to call her son Ishmael. Afterward, Hagar referred to God as El Ra. Then she returned to Abraham and Sarah and soon gave birth to a son, whom she named as the angel had instructed. So here we've got an angel that meets Hagar in the forest and tells her that she is pregnant and she's going to bear a child and it's going to be a wild ass of a man. Uh, so who's the angel in this, you know? Who is the angel? What are the angels? Also, we're talking pre-end of, so at this stage, we're talking after the flood. So this is just after the flood. We haven't gone back before the flood yet. So we're talking possibly we're talking the star civilization is going on at this time. So this is happening in the world of the Crystal Canal civilization, if you know what I mean. So this is the Egyptian slave Sarah, like there's star forts everywhere and canals everywhere, and it's crystal, and we've got the T1000s knocking around. Maybe the angels are T1000s. Who knows? Could the T1000s even reproduce in some weird way? I don't know. Um, Now that would be a wild twist indeed. Could they reproduce with each other? And like that would be a mad one. Do you know the way of Enki? They say that Enki created humans. But maybe Enki didn't create humans. Maybe he created the technology for these fake humans, the crystal-based ones. And maybe he made it so that they could recreate. Maybe they made them for the mines. They made these crystal clones to mine. like it says in the stories. And maybe he then created them to copulate so that he could produce more of them. I don't know. Just a thought. I mean, we can't throw anything out. I don't know if you could teach. Could you teach a crystal program, a liquid crystal robot T1000 to procreate somehow? Maybe. Shapeshifters, the shape-shifting T1000s. Watch out for the shapeshifters. They may not be human. Have you got humans and shapeshifters? Is that what was going on? Have you got humans and the AI? And maybe is the story that the T1000s got so human that they wanted to be human, and then the humans, well, the giant humans were like, nah, you can't. And we're also going to talk about some giants and the creation of giants. And I reckon that the giants were possibly these big crystal. This is what the giants were, because there's a lot of talk of giants turning to stone. So the titans, the big ones, I wonder, were they part of the lights going out? They had to turn off the tech because you had these big, gigantic T1000 titans going around the place, doing whatever they wanted, wrecking the gaff. I wonder. I don't know. If you're wondering why I'm talking about like T1000s, and I'm in earlier episodes we discuss that all the people who are frozen, like statues and people in cemeteries and random odd statues all over the place, that all the stuff that turned to stone, including them, they were all crystalline, and the crystal was programmable liquid crystal, like a T1000, and that they only operated within when the star cities were turned on, they could operate. But if you turned off the star cities, they lost their power source and they just turned to stone. And everything turned to stone when the power source was turned off, including possibly the Titans. Anyway, back at the time, we're saying Abraham is Ham, so he's a god, so he's like maybe the Dagda, kind of that equivalent. He's up there with Elaha and Dalebath. Son of Noah. So you go, like, they say that he's not the son of Noah, but I'm saying like Abraham and Ham, the stories are similar, or the names are similar, and we're just drawing parallels as usual. But maybe I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just drawing speculations. So later, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, and the tension between the women returned. So Hagar became pregnant, and then Sarah argued with her and she ran away, and then the angel said to go back, and then Sarah took her back, and then Sarah got odd again when Isaac was born. So at a celebration after Isaac was weaned, Sarah found a teenage Ishmael mocking her son. So Sarah was the wife of Abraham who couldn't have a child, but she ended up having a child called Isaac. So Hagar had a son called Ishmael, and Sarah eventually later on had a son called Isaac. And Sarah found teenage Ishmael mocking her son. She was upset and she demanded Abraham send Hagar away with her son. She declared Ishmael would not share in Isaac's inheritance. Abraham was greatly distressed, but God told Abraham to do as his wife commanded, because God's promise would be carried out through Isaac. Ishmael would be made into a great nation as well, because he was Abraham's offspring. So here we have two brothers once again, and the split between the good brother and the bad brother. It's like Cain and Abel, the sons of Adam and Eve, and then you've got the extra odd brother and sister thrown in. But once again, it's the same weird dynamic where they have a child who turns out to be like the slave child, or like Joseph was the child that was sent into slavery. Maybe he was the child of the slave mother in the first place. I don't know. So Ishmael is the child of the servant Hagar, and Abraham is potentially like Ham, who is like a demigod of the Normans essentially. So these old world giants who created this world and then had to clean up the mess that they created. Early the next morning, Abraham brought Hagar and Ishmael out together. He gave Hagar bread and then sent them into the wilderness. Harsh. She and her son wandered aimlessly until their water was completely consumed. In a moment of despair, she burst into tears. And God heard her and her son crying and came to rescue them. The angel opened Hagar's eyes and she saw a well of water. He also told her that God would make a great nation of Ishmael. Hagar found her son a wife from Egypt and they settled in the desert of Paran. So they ended up settling. So Ishmael ended up settling in Egypt with Hagar, just like Joseph was in Egypt, just like the Medians were in Egypt, and the Princess Scota, who came with, who came to Ireland, she was an Egyptian pharaoh wife, or she was a daughter of an Egyptian pharaoh. Like Egypt is linked into Ireland, is linked into Spain, is linked into France. The whole thing, it was all the one. Like distance was irrelevant in this world. Distance was irrelevant. But are these the same stories being offered over and over again? You know, just being retold. So Hagar is cast out, which we spoke about. Here is Sarah offering Hagar to Abraham, and Hagar not looking too happy, and neither is Sarah. Nobody's looking happy. Abraham is probably delighted enough, to be honest. He's like, yes, happy days. What a painting, though. I mean, look at this. Poor old Hagar, cast out into the wilderness. Shocking. So this is Hagar again, and the angel who came to Hagar. So who was that angel? That was an important angel that promised a divine heritage to her son. So is this where it was beginning? Is this where the splits were beginning? That a faction of a god, like the angels, were obviously stoking this. So who were the angels? What was going on with the angels? All the angels turned to stone by the looks of it as well. So were all the angels like avatars? There was no such thing as an angel. It was just a winged being that they created, like a crystalline T1000 wing being. You can just grow yourself wings, like epic tech, ridiculous. But the original God body is just, it's the flesh and the bones and it's the chakras, but it's not meant to be tech, you know. But that was lost in the first fall, which we're going to talk about in the next episode, or the next part of episode 10, the never ending episode 10. Here's the angel sending Hagar back home again. She's like, get home, or he's like, whatever it is, get home. And also, once again, they've painted this, right? So they've painted all these pictures so that you think that all of these events were happening back when it was mud flooded. But I don't think it was. I think that it's a clue that the land was devastated, but they're retelling the old stories as if they were in this world. Like that's what's happening. They're telling the stories of Atlantis that happened in crystal star cities with gigantic megafort wells all over the place, which are now covered in mountains and hills and dirt and sand. That's when these stories were taking place. They weren't taking place afterwards. So then they paint the picture that these characters existed in this world when these characters never existed in this world at all, is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that these characters, like this angel, is a T1000 body, and you can only be an angel avatar potentially if you've got the crystal, the programmable crystal avatar body. You can shoot your soul into it, you can fly around, you can grow wings, you can shapeshift. Hagar, on the other hand, she was a woman. She was a flesh and blood. She was a daughter of God, or a divine design. The flesh and blood with the chakra system, the heart, the lungs, all of the organs. These things have no organs. They're just liquid metal. They're just like a T1000. This is the story that I'm putting together from the evidence of what would make sense. These are all turned to stone as well, by the way. So we looked at them, all turned to stone. And why is that? Why some turn to stone and some don't? Surely everyone would turn to stone. Look at this one here. I thought this was very interesting. We've got the story of Hagar again being cast out by Abraham with the son, the young fella Ishmael. He's not a teenager there though. Once again, they've set it in the post-apocalyptic world. they've dressed him up in this kind of garb that they dress everyone up in, but it's almost like they set the scene. So the world ended in the 1600s, and then they spent the next while cleaning things up, tidying it up, and fixing it so that it was ready for the population to be a part of their next world, the next age. Once again, there's the angel. That's Hagar, like very important lady, very central character. And I'm thinking, like, is Hagar? Is this Eru? You know, somehow, is this like, was she a goddess that became a slave? Is that possible as well? Because that was happening too. Sometimes when they were warring, they would take the wife of the king that they had destroyed, and like, is that what happened? That the Anunnaki came in and they destroyed the nature world, and one of the nature goddesses, primarily Eru, let's say, in the Irish mythology, she agreed to marry the head of the miners, who was Daelbath, the head of the invading people at the time, in order to save her people. And what happened from that is potentially the story of the world, you know. But who she was, like, is it like there's a servant, there's a slave girl who has a child by an important, a slave girl who was a child by an important man. And this is a common theme in Game of Thrones as well, actually, with Jon Snow. Come on, Jon. Jon, come over the battlements, Jon. So that's up for consideration. That's up for consideration. The son of the slave or the servant that goes on to become the king. It's like Moses as well. Was he a slave? Or he wasn't a slave. He was down the river in the basket of reeds. But this tier, like in Patrick as well, St. Patrick was a slave. Joseph, I'm sure we'd find way more slave references if we looked. This is a bit more about Hagar here, and birth of three faiths. So they are talking about how it is related to all of the three main religions of the world: Christianity, Islam, and whatever the other one is. Stone Angel. Hagar married to a man called Bram. Who's Bram? Bram and Bran. This is a story called The Stone Angel, a novel, which is based on this other story. Judaism is the other one. So what we're going to get to here, before we do it, we're going to just look at the Middle East. This place is wasted, destroyed, and this was covered in stars as well. It was all covered in stars, the whole place. Look at this here. This is like it just flowed out of everywhere, and all here, like the whole, everything is just splodged. It's mad. Like, I mean, if they're all stars, like if this was all stars, which I think it was, that's just, of course it was. That's the evidence. Like, this, the mega structure of the world is phenomenal. The infrastructure of the world, the masonry is just phenomenal. So we are joining a lot of dots, and all those dot joinings has taken us to this area of the Middle East and Israel, Egypt. This is where all the biblical stories were said to have taken place, all around here pretty much. Maybe up into here a little bit. But that's about it, just here. That's the Bible, the whole Bible right here. You had Pharaoh in Egypt. You had who were the leaders here? I suppose it was a mixture of the Egyptians for a large part of the time, and they were warring with, the stories of the Bible is the Egyptians were warring with the people of God. They were all warring with each other, actually. In fact, it's a tale of serious wars. But once again, who was really warring? How many wars were there? Is it all just the one war? But I think we're talking about the same war, and that this area, like, you may as well be here as here. You know, it's a different world. It's Atlantis, it's Star City, civilization. It's avatars. You can just, you might have a body here that you can just zoop into. So you sit down in Ireland, Shoes is here, and he just hops into his avatar game or his avatar reality through the crystal, and then your body is transferred over here. And maybe it's through the network of crystals that you can transfer the consciousness in that way. It's like a consciousness transfer is what it is. And made like only while the tech is on. But when the tech is off, it doesn't work. There's no power source. The tech has to be on for the avatars and the T1000s to work. Once it's turned off, everything goes to stone. Noah, the founder of civilizations. What I am proposing now is that what I discussed in the previous episode regarding the different ages, I propose that Noah is the founder of Atlantis and the founder of all of the current infrastructure that we see around the world. That he was the equivalent to Enki and Indra, and he was a rebuilder of the world. He may have had help from others, like Enlil, his brother in the Anunnaki tales, or Rama, his brother in the tales of the Vedas, or in the Irish tales, you could equate him to, I would think, the Dagda, and the Dagda had a brother who was, it looks like Elaha, and then the sister was Eru, and they were all kind of in it together, if they were the three of them. So then you've got that kind of trinity there. And their lineage, their sons, so let's say if Noah was the founder and Ham, so Abraham, I'm saying, is the son of Noah. So Noah had three sons, Japheth, Ham, and Seth. So what I'm proposing is that after the fall of the last civilization, after the fall of the battles in the Mahabharata, where they used the great weapon, and where Indra authorized the use of the great weapon that destroyed the world, but they got rid of the invaders, they thought. Obviously, they didn't get rid of the invaders. As they came back. So Noah, I think, is the builder of the star cities and the crystal canals, and he was the guy. Him and his sons and their lineages, I think, are the stories of the world. I think the stories of the Tuatha Dé Danann, the Fomorians, and the Fir Bolg, and the Milesians, and the Partholonians, and the children of Césaire, and the Egyptians. I think they're all the story of Noah, since from the founding of the star cities to the ending of the star cities. From whenever that was, that is the time period. And when we're looking at art, and when we're looking at pictures, and when we're imagining what the world was like, we need to imagine this world. It's highly technologically advanced. It is essentially a super duper techno world with crystal canals everywhere that are programmable, that you can program the walls to be force fields or to light or to change or to shift, or like you imagine the most ultimate technology there is, and that's it. That was Atlantis. That was the rebuilding of the world after the battles of the Mahabharata from the Vedas. So this guy here, Wayne Simpson, the story that everyone knows the story of Noah and the flood. He lived 350 years after the event, and according to Jewish sages, he founded an academy to teach God's laws. Other accounts relate that prior to settling down to teach, Noah was engaged in rebuilding a global society. So Noah was a rebuilding of a global society. Noah, the founder of civilizations, is about the nation building work of Noah, his sons, and the cultures that sprang from their work. I haven't read this book, but it looks epic. It shows how these early societies were able to follow the universal laws of righteousness to live law-abiding, upright, and peaceful lives for several generations. It also reveals the evil forces that ultimately destroyed what had promised to be a golden age. Originally printed in 1601, so 1601 like, Like, that's a long time. That's just after, like, that's in our time frame again. 1601, they printed the stories of Noah. Like, they're basically telling the story of the world that just ended. That's what all of these writers are doing. The art is showing the story of the world that just ended, but they're doing it in, they're putting it in the context of the new world. So the world that just ended when it was a high-tech civilization. The wars happened in a Star Wars type of environment. But then they paint the paintings and they put all the characters into the mud-flooded, ruined devastation. And then they tell the stories about the characters who were warring with each other, and they hide themselves behind all of the internal warring factions. Because obviously what happened to Noah's civilization is that it did go evil, and something crazy happened. It was highly technologically advanced, and they were obviously upright and righteous. You had Brehon laws, and you had a caste system, but it was very fair. But something happened that is based on the ancient writings of Berossus, they say. I reckon Berossus was only, like, Berossus is probably the same guy who wrote this. Like, he's probably, Wayne Simpson probably is Berossus, and they just republished it as this funny name, you know? Um, so this is what we need to consider. Something happened, and the story of what happened is epic of what they say. Where is it now? So this is where it comes from, the stories. It comes from Annio de Viterbo. He's the writer, apparently. He's probably Berossus. They, he's accused of plagiarizing the work of Berossus as his own. He was able to also read Etruscan, which was the language of the Empire of Ross, the Etruscan, the Empire of Ross, the Normans, the Moors, the same world, the same civilization. He was a reader. He was able to read it. So then he wrote the story of Noah. So he wrote this story originally. He is accredited, this guy, Annio de Viterbo, was accredited with writing this story in 1493. So 1493, the world, the star civilization was ending, and they were writing about it. They were writing about what was going on at the time. And of course, we know who Noah was. You know, we didn't even introduce Noah, but everybody knows who Noah was. He was the 10th and last of the pre-flood patriarchs. His story contained the Hebrew Bible in Genesis, and is one of the best known stories, portrayed as the tiller of the soil and the drinker of wine. So when we look at the lineage of Noah then, we see Noah here, and Noah could very well be all these characters. These could all be Noah. Like, every single one of these could be Noah. All the way back to Seth. So Seth, Abel, Cain, and then Adam and Eve are here, up above them, the original progenitors of this apparent human race. Children of God, the flesh and blood, the real humans, the real people, not the fake ones. So this is the line of Noah, and Ham, I think, is he's the Abraham, and of Abraham's lineage, I think that is where the slaves overthrew. So the downfall of Atlantis lies in the lineage of Ham, and there's a whole story of how Ham was going to be cursed. I'm not going into it here because I think it's just unnecessary. You can do it in your own time. But Ham, there is a story about Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and the land was divided up between them. They took different areas of the land. I think Africa was given to Ham. I think Shem or Japheth got here, and someone else got up here. So each of them, Noah came in, let's say, so Noah being Enki, being Indra, being Janus, being the god who was charged with the cleanup after the first flood and the devastation that happened when Indra, from the Indian epics, ordered the use of the terrible weapon, and then they rebuilt it with the stars. We rebuilt it with the stars everywhere. They did a lovely job. I don't know how much water was everywhere, but they used the water, and they rebuilt it with the stars. And they used the water. They canaled the water. that was there on the land. Maybe there was no water before, and then the water came in the flood, and they were like, whoa, water, how are we going to fix this? And then Noah says, I know about crystals and I know about canals, and I reckon we can do like a magic shimmy, and we'll put cathedrals and stars, and we'll do this, and I've got a bag here, and we'll just drop them in the ground, and we will re-terraform the land, and it'll be fine, and it'll be magical, and we'll get it going again like it used to be. And maybe that's what happened then. So Noah did that with his sons, and then things went bad. Things went bad. Before we move on, this guy who wrote about Noah, so Annio da Viterbo, writing in the late 1400s, the time of the monks as well. Like this was happening all over the world as well, all the star cities. I'd say these monks could have been writing in the abbeys. You wouldn't know. Maybe they were writing down all the stories because they knew the end was coming. So they're in the star cities. They're writing them down. They're probably not writing them with like a feather. It was probably something way slicker. I don't think that they were writing them with feathers, but they could definitely have been like the keepers of knowledge. Like in once again, I keep getting flashes of Game of Thrones, and when they go to the library, you know those guys who are they really the advisors to the kings and the queens. They are the Jon Snow's best buddy wants to be one. He is well anyway, they're the really knowledgeable guys in society. And I think that these fellas who were writing, they were those guys, and they were chronicling the last ends of Atlantis is what they were chronicling. And then this fella here, the ultimate snake, Joseph Justus Scaliger, once again Joseph, you know, like Joseph, the son of Isaac, Joseph, the the Saint Patrick character, the slave who was sent to Egypt, Joseph the Technicolor Dreamcoat. He wrote history. He rewrote history in the new way. So you know history as we know it now, that stupid history that we have about all the medieval age and all that carry on. That's nearly all accredited to this lad here. He wrote all the fake history of the world, and he is calling out Annio de Viterbo, who wrote that Noah was a civilization builder. So he said that he was a liar and that it was Berossus, that the content wasn't Berossus, and that your man had made it. So he's calling him out saying, you didn't take the work from Berossus, you took it from yourself, you made it up. So the spurious character of the historians of Annio, which he published both with and without cameras, has long been admitted. So they say it's spurious. So they're saying that what Annio de Viterbo was writing, they're saying that what this guy was writing is fake. So the guys who wrote the fake history of the world are calling out this gentleman here who wrote that Noah was a civilization builder. They're saying that he was a liar and he made it up himself, and that he didn't get the data from Berossus, Fabullus Pictor, and these guys. They're saying that that was not true. And look, forgeries began to unravel in the mid 16th century, so they kept undermining. So they kept undermining him. So look, Atlantis is gone. And then they're like, oh no, there was nothing. That never happened. There was no such Noah. No, it was a myth. There's no Noah. And he certainly didn't found the civilizations. So we have bounced around an immense amount of information in this series. And I'm still not sure what to make of it. Like I think it's gonna have to settle for a while. But it's looking like we're witnessing, or we're reading about the end of Atlantis, and Atlantis was that canal civilization. And it was written about by Plato. And I haven't had any, I didn't bring up any information about it beforehand, but I will right now. So that's all right. We'll be able to read that. We don't need to zoom in. So Atlantis. What is Atlantis? Atlantis is a fictional island mentioned in an allegory on the hubris of nations in Plato's works, Timaeus and Critias, where it represents the antagonist naval power that besieges ancient Athens, the pseudo-historic embodiment of Plato's ideal state in the Republic. In the story, Athens repels the Atlantean attack, unlike any other nation of the known world, supposedly bearing witness to the superiority of Plato's concept of a state. The story concludes with Atlantis falling out of favour with the deities and submerging into the ocean. Despite its minor importance in Plato's work, the Atlantis story has had a considerable impact on literature. So the story of Atlantis is about a civilization that apparently disappeared under the water due to the abuse of crystal technology. And it's a myth. I'm not sure where the abuse of crystal technology comes in, but I've read that in several different commentaries on different writings about Atlantis. But the main writing on Atlantis comes from Plato, who everybody knows. He wrote some of the supposed oldest works. Here's a map of Atlantis in 1669, once again kind of showing, like it's up until the middle of the 1600s, all of this was still very, very in the domain of knowledge. Like here they've got Africa here, don't know what that is, America here, and then a big mountain here in the middle of Atlantis. But they say that Atlantis was a canal city. Let's see, does it say it here? Plato, they did say that Plato put Atlantis back like 10,000 years, and it could have been around for 10,000 years. Who knows? The Sea People's invasion of the Trojan War. This led a number of scholars to investigate possible inspiration of Atlantis from the Egyptian records of the Thera eruption. Like the volcanic eruptions, you'd wonder, are they just the tops of the forts just blowing out the remaining muck that's in the star fort mega well? So there's links to the Trojan War as well there, and so that's Atlantis. And Atlantis sank beneath the waves, and it, to my mind, it mirrors the period in time where this chap Enki was around. But what we're going to do is we're going to dip into Enki for a little bit, and we're going to dip into the other two primary gods, and then I think we're going to end this episode and we're going to come back with episode 9, where we're going to talk a little bit more about Atlantis. And we're going to look at some of the research from Dr. Lana Cantrell's book on the story of the end of one world and the beginning of another. And we're going to join that dot and put that little piece of the jigsaw together. So that will be episode 9. And then I suppose maybe episode 10 will be the last one. Maybe. Enki. Enki was a Sumerian god, and he was based in the town of, or in a place called, Eridu. And Eridu is not looking in great shape these days. how is it possible to just zoom into that there now? Save nearby. We're going to save Eridu anyway. I'm just going to zoom in because it's just easier. So this is Eridu. This is where Enki apparently lived. And we'll just pull him up here. Enki is a Sumerian god of water, the god of water, just like Noah. He's the god of the waters. He understands water. He's the god of mischief as well, just like Loki, god of mischief, god of crafts and creation, as one of the Anunnaki. He was later known as Ea. And that is similar to I and E can be interchangeable. And Ea is a common referral in many, many different aspects of language, which we'll come across. He was originally the patron god of the city of Eridu, which we're looking at, but his cult spread throughout Mesopotamia. So he was the creator god of the Anunnaki. They said that he created humans. In the story of the Anunnaki, as written by Zecharia Sitchin, they say that Enki created humans to he will be he's the creator of the human race in order for them to work in the mines, so that the gods didn't have to work in the mines anymore. That's what the story says. Beginning. So the planet Mercury is associated with Nabu, the son of Marduk, who was in Sumerian times identified with Enki. So Marduk, in my understanding, is the son of Enki. And Marduk is this rogue son. Marduk is St. Patrick. Marduk is Joseph. Marduk is the son that went rogue. But I'm not sure of his lineage. In this, Marduk is, I'm not sure who the mother of Marduk is in this. Anyway, regardless, we can't connect all the dots, and look, everything is not going to fit perfectly, but we're just trying to exercise the mind and consider what was going on and let it sit and stew. I'm trying to draw conclusions kind of on the fly. Like I haven't read this. Like I know that the information is there. He was the Lord, like Jesus, the Lord. He was the Lord, and Lord was a title, Lord of Earth. It wasn't like the Lord God. Lord was the title, and it wasn't even a king. Like the Lord is below a king, if you think about it. Enki has a divine lover called Ninursag, and the divine battle between the Younger-Gigi divinities and the Abzu saw the Abzu, the underground waters of Iaqua, becoming the place in which the foundations of the temple were built. Some Sumerian deities' names as Enlil. There are variations like Elil. En means Lord and E means temple. It is likely that Ea is the Sumerian short form of Lord of Water, as Enki is God of Water. Ab in Abzu also means water. So I notice here that they've left Enlil completely out of this little blurb on Wikipedia. And Enlil is the brother, and a very prominent brother, of Enki. So this guy here, I'm surprised there's no little clicky thing on him. Enlil is a very important character, and the story of the Anunnaki centers around the battles between Enlil and Enki. So Enki was seated in Egypt and Enlil was in the Middle East, so the stories go. And they had battles and they had pyramid wars, and there's a whole epic, legendary tales about the Anunnaki and their wars involving Enki and Marduk the sun. Marduk is the biggest maker of messes of everyone. And then you've got Enki, and then you've got Enlil and his family over on the other side in the Middle East. But we've also got to consider, like, the place where it happened is irrelevant because the geography is irrelevant and space between places is irrelevant in this, because they were able to transport themselves immediately almost everywhere. And if you look at the big arches as well, like look at those arches, you'd wonder about them. Like l'Arc de Triomphe, they all look like big bits of tech. What was going on with them? This doesn't seem to want to buffer at all. Are we over here? Why am I so far away? Is this Ur? This is Eridu. Not half covered. So all this area here is just fully covered in sand. It's complete desert, but look, the roads make out the old patterns. And this is Eridu. This is where Enki, like it's not even sticking out of the ground anymore. Like all of this is all star cities. This whole area, that desert there, that was all buried under here. There's tech everywhere, no doubt about it. But this survived, but not completely survived. It did get it. It's not looking great. Where is this city? Or these are just rivers of the old canals, I suppose, that are left. So Enki is a very important character. Enki we can also compare, I think, to the Dagda. So we've spoken about the Dagda so many times, and he is the most prominent character in Irish mythology. He's the guy, he's like Odin. He's going around, he's got his fingers in all the pies. But there does seem to be, like, there's a father and there's two sons. So Enki and then Lil. And then you've got Jacob and Esau. And then you've got the other son, who is the son by the slave. So I'm wondering, is you've got Enki and Lil, and I wonder, like, is Marduk maybe a brother and they make him out to be a son? I've never considered Marduk as a brother of Enki before. But if I'm thinking now that you've got, like, I'm thinking that the Dagda may be the rogue element in the Irish story, and he's just wild, and he is, like, because they say that the Dagda is the son of Dalebath by an unknown mother. Isn't that correct? Let me have a look at that now, because that's worth checking. The son of Dalebath by an unknown mother, just like if you were to have a son by a servant or by a slave. So I wonder, like, you had Dalebath and Eru, they were the main gods and goddesses, and then he has a son by, could it be Boan? But she's the goddess associated with Nuada. So the Dagda is the son by an unknown mother in Irish mythology. Let me have a look here and find my little thing on the Dagda. Have we got any of it? Dalebath. So Dalebath. So we might remember this. His father was very, so Dalebath, his father's list is Angus or Ogma of the two of the Danann or Elaha. So this is Dalebath, the progenitor of everyone. But once again, it's a circular. This is probably Noah. Dalebath is probably Noah. And then either he's Noah or he's Ham, one or the other. He could be Ham. Dalebath could be Ham. Abraham and Dalebath, they could be the one. But I'm putting the Dagda, they put him as Uchud or Olahar. In this, his daughters by Ernmas were the three goddesses, which is fine. But his mother, the mother of the Dagda, we don't have here. I don't know, can I find it? But you should remember from the earlier tales that it was the that it was an unknown mother that fathered the Dagda. So we're not going to go into it too deep. We're not going to waste time. It's in the earlier videos. I'm not bringing it up. So there you've got Enki. And then let's switch over to the India, so the Hindu, the Vedas, the Mahabharata, the tales of India. And they talk about a gentleman called Indra. He's the guardian deity and he's the king of the highest heaven. Worshipped, yada, yada, yada. His powers are similar to deities such as Jupiter, Zeus, and Thor, and Enki. He is the king of Svarga, which is heaven, and his capital, and the Devas. He's a deity of lightning, thunderstorms, rains, river flows, and war. Indra is most referred to as the deity of the Rig Veda is the battle, not the Mahabharata. It could be the Rig Veda. He's celebrated for his powers and the one who kills the great symbolic evil, malevolent type of Asura named Vritra, who obstructs human prosperity and happiness. So Vritra is what the invader was in the first, before the flood of Noah. Vritra invaded the world, and Indra took the forces of the gods and destroys Vritra and his deceiving forces, and thereby brings rain and sunshine as the friend of mankind. And what we're going to see is in this war is that the post-war world was fairly destroyed, and Indra had to then go and fix it up. His importance diminishes where he's depicted as a powerful hero, but one who constantly gets into trouble with his drunken, hedonistic, and adulterous ways, and the god who disturbs Hindu monks as they meditate because he fears self-realized human beings may become more powerful than him. So Indra, and we're going to talk a bit more about him, he's got a brother then as well, of course. So his brother is Rama. And they don't mention Rama here either. So the wars of the Vedas involve Indra and Rama for the most part. And then we've got Janus again. We're going to come back to Janus, and we're probably going to end it on Janus. Janus being Noah, Janus being Anu, the god Anu, the father god of Enlil and Enki, possibly. Anu is said to be Enlil and Enki. But I'm wondering, like, are they all just the one? So Janus, as we said, gates, transitions, time, doorways, passages, frames, and endings. He's got a couple of different qualities. And he is the god depicted as having two faces, since he looks to the future and the past. And we said that he is a god of masks as well, because he wears many masks. But Janus, I would be equating to Noah, and Noah, he is the last, looks like the last of the Norman race, or was the last of the Norman race after the flood. So the Norse are like Enki and Indra, they would be the same person as Janus, I would say, or else they would be the children of Janus, children of Noah. These people are either Noah himself, or they're either the children of Noah. Here's another parallel. If we go to Greece, Noah has often been compared to Deucalion, the son of Prometheus. Prometheus is the god, you might remember, who gave humans fire. What fire is up for debate. It might not be real fire. It may be something different. Like Noah, Deucalion is warned of the flood by Zeus and Poseidon. He builds an ark and starts it with creatures, and Josephus used the story of Deucalion as evidence that the flood actually occurred and therefore Noah existed. So there's Josephus. Again, Joseph. A Hindu story, so we're going back to the Hindus. Lord Vishnu would probably be considered to be the equivalent of Indra again. So Vishnu and Indra would be the same. A story of Lord Vishnu and King Manu is found in the Hindu chronicle, the Matsya Purana. Lord Vishnu, in his Matsya, fish avatar, so he has an avatar. So was Lord Vishnu in like a super duper avatar at this time? Was this a biological avatar where they hadn't created all the technology? Or maybe they did have the technology and then it was destroyed and then they started again and then it was destroyed again. So maybe the idea of the gods, maybe it has been highly technological the whole time. So you either live with nature in the forest with the trees and the nature living and all that goes with it. You live completely in tune with nature and you connect in. It's a Garden of Eden type of scenario. Or you live in a world where you are a god essentially, and you create a crystal world and layer it on top of the nature that was here. So you use the nature to create and power the crystal world. So you're using the water that exists in this in the waters below, and you're using the matrix of the trees, which is all the stuff that is used to make the crystals. So like if you're making a wall, like you're using different minerals, and they all come from the earth. So essentially, what you do when you are terraforming and mining, you are taking the minerals of the earth and you are alchemically changing them into something different so that they can have another use. So what I think was happening was that the gods in the time of Atlantis, so the Crystal Canal cities, and the time maybe before Atlantis, there could also have been something like Crystal Canal cities, but maybe different. So some of the remnants that we see could be from the first epoch or the epoch before Atlantis, and then there could be more epochs even behind that again. So there could be more, but we're just saying that here we're talking about different epochs where there's floods, where the world is destroyed and it has to be rebuilt again. Let's see. The names of Noah and Manu have the same etymological root, so they're the same person potentially. Manu, they're saying, is so Manu, and Vishnu is also, so you could say that Vishnu would potentially be the father of Noah. He could even be like Enoch. So I think that we're going to leave it there. And we've tied in Noah, we've tied in the flood and the first epoch, and we're going to now look at. So according to Purana's story, the present Manvata. So we're in the seventh Manvatara at the moment. I wonder, is this number 7 we're in now, and there's been 6? That's a common story you find. So with that, we're going to leave it there, and we're going to head to the next part. And in that part, it's going to be number 9. We're going to draw in a little bit of the work of Lana Cantrell, and I think we're probably going to end up summarizing everything in part 10, and it's going to be epic. So I hope you enjoyed that. Think good thoughts. Check out Google Maps and enjoy yourselves. Thanks, lads. See you soon.